Wait, are we recording? Oh, gosh damn it. Welcome in, everybody. The break is finally over. I finally decided to stop singing. It's time to bring you all another episode of this, the Scuffin It Up podcast with Ben and Conor. It's time to roll the intro music. Welcome in, Wiffling fans, to this new episode of the Scuffin It Up podcast. Being recorded on this Friday, 25th of March, 2022. I'm your host, Ben Fiore, coming in from all-reliable Studio B2 in Poughkeepsie, New York. And my fellow co-host, Conor, is back to join us in from his caddy shack in Madison, Connecticut. Conor, it's been a while. How you doing there, pal?
Not doing too bad. It's been, a couple weeks since we last saw each other, so we have a little bit of a surprise coming out shortly for all of our fans of the Connecticut Wiffle Ball League, so stay tuned for that. But anyway, yeah, I'm doing fine.
All right, that's a good answer. I hope we weren't going to ramble on about saying something that the surprise was going to be Breakers winning a third straight championship, because that's
not a surprise. That's just well known at this point.
What are you talking about? You weren't winning a championship again.
Come on. Who we have? We have you guys.
I know, and you have Liam flying, so that's the question.
Exactly.
Me versus Liam. Vote on your phones, honestly. Well, the way I walk people, honestly, it'll be over in the third inning, which is good for everyone else because they can just tune out to something else. Speaking of tuning into other things, even though we are in the Wiffling offseason, we are fully into March Madness with the 2022 NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Championship being underway, and last night was the first games of the Sweet 16, and boy, oh boy, if you were a March Madness fan, especially if you had a bracket, were you in for some traumatizing moments? I know for my bracket, it was absolutely terrible, because I think I picked Providence to go over Arizona, which did happen, but the big killer was Gonzaga, the number one overall team in the country, losing to Arkansas. And that busted my bracket, which before the games last night, not to brag or boast, but I'm gonna, was in the top 97th percentile. So I'm kind of happy on podcasting because it's a good chance to get vented off my chest how much hope I had in my bracket this year and how it's come crashing down. How's it been for you there, pal? Because I know we were talking in recent times of going back who's got the better bracket, but I think you might be taking the lead right now, sadly.
No, I wouldn't say so. So last night, when Texas Tech wound up losing to Duke.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's right, Texas Tech, too.
That kind of hurt my bracket. They had them in the championship. I didn't have them win at all. So at least I have that going for me. I have, Nova actually winning all, and they managed to pull it off, barely by the skin of their teeth, but, I was expecting them to win, and they did, so. But yeah, I started off slowly this year, and then kind of built my way to having a relatively solid Sweet 16. But yeah, the Elite Eight is where it's starting to come crashing down. I mean,
very relatable feeling. I think everyone in America is feeling you on that one. I think I was looking at ESPN Tournament Challenge. I got some notification this morning before I got out to work, and they said of the games last night, I think it was like 0.2% even got like half the games right. That's how crazy the upsets were last night with two of the three remaining number one seeds losing and probably breaking the hearts of everyone unless you're an Arizona fan, because let's be honest, history shows that that's pretty common for if you're a Wildcats fan. So
well, Arkansas was the 4 seed. They beat the 1 seed, but yeah, I get what you were saying.
I mean, honestly, Gonzaga's going down the same road because it's every year. They have all the recruits now. They dominate the conference. This year was a little different, even though they were so good. They had St. Mary's in their conference as well, who played very well and got a high seed. But once again, March Madness just ain't their thing, though. But it is, though, for Villanova, who's still in it. And thankfully, one of my 5 million simulation brackets on ESPN does have them winning. So I do have a hope for them that they pull it out. And maybe if you have a bracket, if you don't, just hop on the Villanova hype train, because Colin Gillespie is the stuff of legend, folks. You know.
Well, Anyway, I managed to kind of pull a little bit of a cheeky move on everyone because in my family's tournament challenge, we don't take the points like for ESPN. You add 10 points for each correct pick.
It starts at 10 points in the first round, then it doubles each round. So the round 32, 20, 40, Sweet 16, blah 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 until your bracket's busted.
Yes, but for my family, we have the same sort of system, except we base it off the seedings of each team. Oh. So if you pick a 1 seed to win in the first round, you only get 1 point for that win.
So it's kind of like a parlay almost. So if you basically take the under out, basically the higher payouts, you take the bigger chances.
Exactly right.
So basically, you're a big strong family where it's go big or go home in your brackets. I take it.
Pretty much, and I picked. You'll probably not believe me for this one. I picked Iowa State to make it all the way to the Final Four.
I think you told me that once. I think when we were
a team who only had 2 wins all of last season. And I picked them to go to the Final Four, and they're still in this thing. And they're playing tonight, so this is going to be a crucial game for me to watch. They're all the way in the Sweet 16, so I'm happy that happened. But I just hope it doesn't come all the way crashing down tonight. But it
already started for me, so I hope you join me in that pit tonight. So we can all turn our minds off of everything else, and we can just focus on baseball and wiffle ball, and hopefully life will be good then.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be fine eventually, but these next couple nights could be very, very damaging. So if you are very
traumatizing to say the least.
Yeah, do you remember last year when we were locked in quarantine or Zoom University last year, and we watched Abilene Christian upset Texas and blow your bracket to shreds on I think it was like the first day of the tournament or second day.
Can we not talk about that part?
I mentioned it, so I think we're at least going to touch on it for a bit. We were just like sitting around. It was like 11:30 at night.
Why must you remind me of Abilene Christian's upset?
Because horns down, of course. The celebration to end all celebrations.
Come on.
Hey,
I mean,
listen, your bracket's better off than mine this year.
Do I agree with horns down? Yeah, I don't like Texas, but did I have Texas going deep that year? Yeah, I did.
All that aside, flash forward. We are out of March Madness soon to be, and when that happens, we got whiffling to come about. And as we get closer and closer to Wiffle season, we have a bunch of news coming out. So, Connor, I think you know what time it is.
Wiffle and 180, baby.
Oh my goodness, he called it right on the spot. Yes, indeed, folks. Get your calculators, get your protractors, get your stopwatches. It is time for the second edition ever of everyone's favorite flyby Wiffle news, the Wiffle and 180. Connor, are you ready for me to stutter and take 5 tries?
I'm very ready.
All right. Pull your stopwatches. Can I make it? Eyes are on the clock.
I don't think so.
I probably won't, but you know what? For all those out there, you might thank me because I can just say all this in 180 seconds or less. Or again, your subscription to this podcast is completely free. Courtesy of nobody, but nobody. I'm just going to think of somebody, but really, unless it's Connor, unless he wants to trade his Mickey Mouse ring from 2020, I guess.
Wow. You went there.
I don't know. I think everyone else went there, honestly, the last 2 years, so.
Okay, yeah,
it's
you
on
got
the
a
table.
good point. Yeah, you do. Okay.
It's on the table.
Anyway.
Hey, gotta keep it cool, though. Any rate, let's get on with it. It's time we count, and we will get this count started in 5, 4, 3, 2, pi. Coming out of the MLW camp, everyone's favorite league, MLW announced their upcoming 30 for 30 documentary with the 2 days in September taking a look at the 2021 World Series run of the Downtown Diamondbacks, led by the incredible news of Jimmy Norp, our whiffling Lord and Savior of the past year. From what they've said, they said that the documentary will come out sometime in mid-April alongside the much-anticipated MLW draft. So MLW fans, look out for that. On more of the East Coast side, and more of the fast-pitch scene, the 2022 schedules for Mid-Atlantic Wiffle and East Coast Wiffle have both been released. MLW will be going to 7 locations in the regular season on top of their traditional postseason schedule. The biggest among which is the newly announced Steel City Showdown, which will be coming to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Will be hosted alongside the Wiffle Life League. It'll be the first tournament out that side in Western Pennsylvania for the first time since 2018, and will be hosted at a USL Championship Soccer Stadium. So definitely a fun venue for that. ECW will be returning to their roots of Danvers, Mass for a slate of 4 tournaments. And those will be, 5 tournaments actually. And those will be at least once a month starting in June. So Fast Pitch Whifflers, get excited for that kind of stuff. Speaking also of Fast Pitch, at the end of the year, UF's also in the last month released new guidelines regarding team roster eligibility. We'll actually get to that in a little bit of news, so I'm not getting much of it, but it includes generally getting teams much more in the lines of playing tournaments throughout the year in order to be eligible for UFs. It was much of a concern of the last couple of tournaments being too open, but now teams will be required to play at least one event before entering UFs and must play with members of their desired roster. In other national news, we have the NWLA as they prepare for their 2022 tournament in Indianapolis. They have announced 3 new members to the NWLA tournament committee. They have added on Wade Cooper, otherwise known as Dr. Winkley from the HRL League in Minnesota, Home Run League. They've also added Jimmy Cole from AWAA, as well as the brand new Electric City Wiffle Ball League. Shout out to them in New York. As well as Wiffling favorite Tom Gannon, prominently seen, especially in the last couple of weeks, down in PLW in Las Vegas. So they will add to the tournament crew for the tournament that is set to take place once again, and well, maybe not once again, but return to its July roots. And in final news, going all the way back out to the West Coast, PLW is lining up the headlines, but maybe no one bigger than Billy Santawan, who threw the first ever perfect game in the 6-game era of PLW back on March 19th. So shout out to Billy, if you are listening to this, for throwing a masterpiece that includes 7 strikeouts in that win. And that, if I bet the timer somehow, is this beautifully spot on. Starters and everything included is this week's, or maybe this month's, Wiffle N180. Connor, I don't think I need to really ask you how I did, because I'm pretty high on how well I just
prepared.
hit that. Honestly.
That was spot on.
I know. I just wish maybe I could have gotten to more news, because maybe I hung on MLW a little bit longer. But hey, recency bias, Gen Z Wiffle MLW fan bias, I guess. I don't know. That's all I got for on that one. But a bunch of fun news that's come out. Looking through all the headlines, what are you looking forward to most, especially with what's been coming out recently?
Well, naturally, of course, the MLW 2 days in September. It
speaks for itself.
Exactly. Their 30 for 30s are absolutely incredible, year in, year out. If you're a Wiffle fan at all in any respect, you're going to want to watch this, because Jimmy Norp, I can only imagine what he's going to be like in the video. Oh, God.
I mean, you do have the man, the myth, the legend, the Spike Lee of Wiffle Ball, Kyle Schultz once again taking the producing role again on that video. The man behind the absolutely eclectic, eccentric 30 for 30 collection, including probably my favorite, the 2019 video with the 7-year story of the Pacific Predators. So
I can agree with that. Yeah,
I think a lot of people will agree on that one. I mean, the 2021 was also really good with doing, especially that whole intro sequence. Might be my favorite intro sequence of the whole series, other than maybe seeing the Mallards or the Cobra Spill 2L lead in the 2017 video, because Cobra Spill 2L lead. Pretty genius, right? But that's all news for this week. I will say I'm pretty exhausted, so we're going to take a quick little break here, and when we get back, we're going to dive into some of those news. We got a bit more on the UF's roster news, what this could mean for a bunch of teams going on, as well as some news from CTWL with some off-season moves that have occurred in the past couple weeks. And also a bunch, so much fun more. This is the Scuffin It Up podcast with Ben Fiore and Conor DeCosta. We'll be back in 60 seconds. Podcasts, we listen to them, we binge them, and we certainly love them. But have you ever pondered creating your own show? You may be discouraged. Creating and distributing podcasts can be expensive, time-consuming, and involve hours of learning to just get one episode done. Why go down the path of spending hundreds of dollars when you can get podcasting without spending a dime? Thanks to Anchor, you can do exactly that. Anchor is a completely free service, allowing you to record and edit your podcast from your computer or mobile device. Just use your device's mic, hit record, and share your thoughts. Add some music and effects to add some flair to it, and when you are done, Anchor will distribute your work to all major podcast platforms for you. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also monetize your podcast using curated ad reads to make money off your podcast, all with no minimum listenership. With Anchor, there is no learning, no setup, and no organizing fees. It is everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place, all for free. Join me and the Scuffin It Up podcast, as well as thousands of other shows like this one. Download the free Anchor app wherever you download your apps, or visit anchor.fm to get started. That's ANCHOR.FM. Anchor by Spotify, the easiest way to make a podcast. Welcome back, everyone, into the Scuffin It Up podcast. If you come back from our short little break here, Conor and I just diving into the last segment with all the brand new news that's come out in the last month. And one of the things that stood out a lot to us were the brand new rules for rosters and teams going into the 2022 edition of the United Wiffle Ball National Championship Tournament. This year's championship tournament, for those who do not know, is returning to York, Pennsylvania at People's Bank Park, the home of the independent ball York Revolution. The tournament was expected to feature 40 teams, as it has in years past, and will feature some of the best fast-pitch wiffle ball talent from around the nation. For this year's tournament, they have decided to switch up the rules with regards to how teams may be formed and what teams are eligible to enter the national championship tournament. In the new guidelines, they announced three main pillars. The first of which I'd say this is the most interesting part, but for the 2022 edition, teams that participate must have at least four players on their final roster. This new rule, at least according to the official statement put out by United Wiffle on their Instagram page, is to supplement the new rules that will force four people in play in the field at any given time during the national championship tournament. The past two nationals have had three people in the field, one pitcher and two fielders, but now a third person will be in the field, which I think at least is going to play into how you can defensively play against teams and just maybe impact the ways people can score in a game. And generally, I think it's going to do at least some part into who wins and who loses in a ball game. I know, Conor, this is kind of your first point, seeing at the guidelines. At least this portion of the rule change. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, having four guys on a team is, obviously it's a fun experience for everyone, but when you have four guys on a team, like four guys that you know and have played with, and you're in, like, say you're in a league and you're traveling all the way to York, you get your four best guys and you're going there, and all four of them get that opportunity to play and show their skills now. Obviously, with last year you had the three, like you said. Sometimes,
or at least the three.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Regardless, now you got a minimum of four players, which realistically, Wiffle Ball is taking steps in the right direction. Because if they were sticking at three, then there would be really no evidence that the game is growing. But
yeah, I think you're going off that point. It's definitely a weird point, especially amongst the guys who have played in previous years' tournaments, especially those who have come from the golden ages of the mid to late 2000s when they were playing fast plastic. Because of this rule, you now lose those infamous three-man teams that have won tournaments in past years. I think probably the first one that comes to mind is the 2008 603 All-Stars, who won in that infamous Wiffle Work documentary that's out there on the internet waves. I think it's a tournament that comes to mind to me. And even there have been teams in the past, such as 2005 or 2006, not sure on the year, but in the box as well, who won having only a two-man roster in years past. So it's been a staple of the tournament in past years with the three-man lineups. But I guess as the talent has finally started to get up there and be able to build these teams where you can finally have four guys who can all really compete at a very high level, such as a tournament like this, it's going to definitely help to, I guess, also make it more professional now that you have more people in the field, that there's more activity, there's more participation, there's more just general energy going around on the field. And I think that's going to help if you want to just grow the game and make this tournament be a standout on the Wiffle calendar. I mean, it already is. In the first 2 years, it's definitely taken the wiffle balling scene, medium fast, whatever you fancy. It's definitely played a huge part into that.
Exactly.
But I think especially with at least that part of the rule change, it's going to do. I don't think it'll change the game's significant. It's going to be like mind-boggling in of itself. But I think it's definitely going to impact maybe the fact that you can put someone in the outfield, you could take away a tag play, or you could play 2 guys on the infield now and try to take away against a pull hitter and play the shift. The options are definitely out there for managers and teams now that if they're going to have to play 4, at least defensively, it's going to mean maybe at least hopefully better on for pitchers. Even a tournament like this where, pitchers have dominated and pitchers have been very good. Even as offenses have started to increase, it's fast pitch wiffle ball at the end of the day. It's gonna be a pitcher's game
until it isn't, realistically. I mean, that point may literally never come.
Yeah, hopefully it never does, because then we were probably picking the wrong point. We might as well go play rec league softball. But in all seriousness, no, I think as you're alluding to with maybe getting slow pitch softball into it, thinking about it on offense, it's definitely, I think this is the part where reading into some other analysts that I've listened to, other players that have spoken out online about the whole rule change, it's certainly a bit more weird now getting this rule change from at least that from their perspective. And with the rule change, now you have to play 4 guys. But a lot of teams that I've noticed, such as, I'll quote one example, being the Ridley Park teams in Mid-Atlantic, but because they had more talent in their league, they wanted to actually expand to 3 teams. But instead of keeping more guys in each team, they actually shortened the lineups when they played. I mean, to be fair, Mid-Atlantic, where they play these all-star teams, and UFs are still 2 events, but the rule sets are pretty similar. And what they were thinking was, by having the option to play less guys in the lineup, by having less guys on the roster, that's going to impact people getting more at-bats, more experience, and being more prepared for a tournament like this. Now that you're saying that you have to have 4 people in the lineup, you have to play a 4th person in the batting order, you have to expand the lineup, and naturally guys are not going to get the same reps you would with a 2 or a 3-man roster. So I think that's definitely going to be an interesting point of contention when the tournaments come, especially now since, as again with the rule changes, how rosters are going to be conformed. Do you focus on offense, knowing that you have to have 4 guys that can all put the ball in play, or do you still take that chance that you can have the pitching on that side? I don't know if it's definitely an interesting point. As a manager like me, I pick defense personally, but I think you also have to hit the ball to win the game to score runs. So
you do bring up a good point. I mean, at the same time, if you got one stellar pitcher that can pitch lights out on the carpet, obviously you're going to need that offense to help you out. But let me ask you a question, because I'm not as well informed as you are, definitely. But how common were the DHs in last year's tournament?
Last year's tournament, I mean, I didn't get to see the whole stat line and see everything, but I did see a slightly bit more prevalent than I maybe have seen in years past. It's still uncommon because it still is wiffle ball. We do see a lot of times where the pitchers can hit, and sometimes the best players in the country are 2-way players. Guys like the lines of, I think first one that comes to mind was Caleb Yonkman, who was big with the New York Meats in the past tournament when they knocked out C4. He hit a home run in that quarterfinal game, and I think he's much as good as he is as a pitcher, especially in the Midwest, seeing the wiffle game. He also has the ability to go be a great offensive player, even in a format that he's not used to in the big bat New England style, as you might call it. So I think it's definitely going to be an interesting point where maybe if you don't have a guy, you could use a DH or an EH, you could work around it. But yeah, I think of years past, it's getting to the point where people are playing both sides, if not all 3 sides of the ball, hitting, pitching, and fielding. So to me, I think pitchers will still hit. I don't think that much is going to change. But I think it's going to be more changing. Do you, maybe those last guys on the roster, do you focus again on offense or defense? Or maybe do you sacrifice and potentially, not to say to the point of an automatic out, but do you sacrifice a guy who's not going to be as productive to have a guy that can go, if you say are a competitive team on Sunday, you make the elimination rounds. Do you have that ace who's not a stellar hitting? Do you take him on the team knowing that Saturday he might not be of much use to you? That's going to be an interesting point for teams to figure out.
Personally, I think there could be a potential for an uptick in the designated hitter this year, because I mean, take me for example. I guess you could say.
That's all right.
I'm not exactly the best pitcher in the league, in our own league, and I know.
Hey, when you want to hit the board, you can be. I must say, when it comes to
Yeah,
when it's working. I mean, to be fair,
yeah,
as amateurs, that's
you,
like 30% of the time.
You bring me to National Wiffle Tournament, and you have me pitching out there. They're gonna hit me for a dozen home runs at least.
I mean, you didn't have to say that at first. We could have gone to the tournament and let them surprise with the pitching consistencies, but
I think it's pretty well known. However, you know that I'm pretty good at swinging the bat, so I think that with obviously there are going to be more players that are going to be there, obviously with this new rule. But I think. Personally, I would bring, if I were the main guy bringing a team to the tournament, I would bring a minimum of 5 guys to the tournament.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring that up is that, I'm sorry to cut you off there for a second. I do have to put a point in that in the tournament rules, is that you are capped at 5. So you have to bring 4 or 5.
Okay.
I know Mid-Atlantic, they have the ability to 6, but as of right now, from what UFs has put out there, they're sticking to the 5 max.
Okay, so in which case I would want to bring that 5th guy to kind of have that option. If one guy just say he isn't hitting well, isn't fielding well, something along those lines, stick that designated hitter in there that you know is going to swing the bat well, and bam. I mean, you could still have the guy if he's like a good pitcher but isn't really a better hitter than the better hitter that you brought in.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be, I don't want to say like cheeky, but it's kind of that way.
It's good. I think it's a bit cheeky because it's going to involve a bit more on the managers to make some tough decisions on who they want to bring on the team this year, knowing that you're going to have to play basically everyone on your roster. You're going to have to show everyone on your team all the cards from the top to the bottom. Not to say
exactly.
There's weak holes on teams.
There's a lot of strategy now going into it.
Yeah, especially now that you're going to have people in the field. Maybe you get those involved, so maybe a guy who wouldn't have played in year's tournaments gets the experience he needs. So when you call him up in the big moment, he's maybe more prepared at that point. But is that going to hurt the guys who are going to get the big time hits? It's good because now you got to share the load more.
I would say the guys that come in as the. I would say the guys that come in potentially as the brand new to the tournament, they could be the guys that you just stick in as a DH to get them that experience early on, see what they can do, and if they're not producing up to your standards, then I mean you could just take them out. So
yeah, or even you could just maybe who knows, maybe UF wants to go down the road. I mean, in Wiffle Ball we kind of already have the Shohei Ohtani rule with pitchers staying in as DHs and whatnot in a sense, but hey. Maybe they want to add that in to get maybe a wrinkle of interestingness to the tournament. But
exactly,
it's gonna be. I think it's definitely gonna be interesting knowing that you have to play the full rosters and use them. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting with that. I think the 4 fielders are gonna look really nice. I must say. I mean, a lot of teams last year in the tournament already were using it, which is according to the U.S. is a lot of the reason why they're going with the rule change. But now that it's official. Also, the fact that you have to have these rosters this long, could we see some consolidation of teams now? Because now the teams that had to go with 3-man guys, now they can't find the 4th guy. Do we see teams add pieces? Do we see Ridley Park maybe can join their teams again to build one large super team? Do we see teams like Earl and the Juggernauts add players onto their rosters on their runs last year? Or well, Earl wasn't there, but it was more or less with Wiff Inc. Do you see teams like who else are thinking of teams? Oh, the Whippets make moves. I mean, you could name any number of teams.
I think it's pretty much
among the top
inevitable.
Contenders. I mean, especially. Or do maybe see the younger teams want to maybe pull together to try to pull a team?
I think they would consolidate, personally. I think it's pretty much inevitable because you make a super team, you bring it over there, and you get 2 guys from essentially 2 teams joining into one to have one big super team from the same area, and if they're a golden team, pretty much, good luck.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, like you said, the younger teams could also have that desire to kind of start anew and kind of see what the this new rule change brings to the table. You could have these young guys start off the first season where there's the 4 guys, and then they're growing in potential, and the guys that have been there for a long time, they're kind of these guys that have been there for a long time, they're kind of like static. They're static, I guess you could say. They're not going to really move any further in their potential. You're going to have, I think there's going to be maybe an uptick in young players that would want to kind of start at the rule change and kind of build from there.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be more interesting as you bring that up, because even though whether young team, old team, play for 10 years, play once a year, the next part in this is probably the much more interesting one, the part that's definitely got me the most perplexed as we come on the podcast today. The second part of that statement, it says, quote, "In order to be eligible for National Championship Tournament registration, interested teams must play in a United Wiffle Ball sanctioned event during the 2022 year, and at least 3 players on your final NCT roster must play on the same team, as in the same team you bring to UFs, at the event to establish your team's registration for October." So, that's probably more interesting, because a decent number of the teams that went far in last year's tournament at the 2021 NT team, and a lot of teams that have won in years past. I'm thinking at least along the lines of Phenoms, C4, Whiff Inc. as well. A lot of those teams were teams that came together from guys who played throughout the year, formed one big conglomerate of talent, and came out the UFs trying to win a national. It's definitely been, I'm not trying to single out those teams when I say that, because there are plenty more examples, and those are just the first that come to mind. But ever since the whole open nationals feeling has been going on for about the last 10, 15 years, there has been an uptick of teams wanting to pull together an all-star cast to pull out the stops to win the nationals, because if every other team is doing it, why wouldn't you if you're trying to be competitive at the same point? But now teams have to get involved throughout the year, which I think is fantastic for the game. It may not be fantastic for keeping the fun teams together that maybe want to. It may still very much, because maybe those super teams now have a choice to what's the words I'm looking for? They want to actually play the full year together, knowing that these stipulations want to be in place. It's almost like, what do you pick? Do you pick your family, or do you pick your friends, kind of thing? Do you pick the short term, or do you pick the long term, kind of thing? I think it's gonna be an interesting choice, and this, as we were talking about, like consolidation of teams, this could be the most interesting point, because what if those major roster super teams that were there in tournaments past, what if they can't come together to play one tournament a year during the point in those sanctioned events? It's going to be weird.
It makes things a whole lot more.
It's going to make the whole team, the whole selection committee, or not the selection committee, the whole selection of teams, very interesting the next couple of months once we get registration going, I think. I agree. To be fair, I guess for a team like us, or teams that were based off leagues and stuff, probably won't affect us as much, because we kind of picked from our own pool as it was, and we just run with whatever we got. But for teams that were more regional in tournaments past, it's going to be an interesting move. And I will say that's definitely got some controversy of guys that like the open format, but then it's almost like, do you want to, as we're going down that road, I was listening to a Wiffle statement video from Ben Schaefer. Ben, if you're listening to this as a Wiffle fan, shout out to you from Ben to Ben on that one. But in one of his videos that talked about these guidelines, he had mentioned the fact of, also from, as we were talking, like trying to make it more professional with the 4 people on the field, it's more professional in the sense that now teams are going to have to be like the Juggernauts this past year, who won the Nationals, and they played all year together. They played them all in the regular season. They played them all in the postseason. Some of the guys played together, not on Juggernauts, but they played together in Golden Stick Yard a little bit. And now they play the whole year, the whole chemistry that they built, not just in 2021, but years past. And they got themselves a good bid, and they rolled right through the tournament. They didn't lose a single game, and they showed what happens when you put a full team together that works together, loves being with each other, and you have the chemistry that maybe beats some of those super teams that don't have the ability to be there year round. Now those teams now have to take, I guess, with at least one event a year, have to start taking that approach. And at least from my perspective, I'm all for it. If it means we get teams that also we can follow throughout a year that aren't just moving around between leagues and formats, it's going to happen naturally with the way the game is. It's almost like in MLB, or we think of like the four major North American sports, right, Connor? When we watch that stuff, we don't see like Aaron Judge play the Yankees, and then he goes plays for the Red Sox, and then he goes plays for the Twins, and then all over the place. But at the end, he plays for the Yankees. I mean, I guess especially from a spectator standpoint, if you want to bring fast pitch wiffle ball to a mass, I feel like it's a choice that has to be made eventually.
Exactly, and I mean, yeah, you bring up a really good point. Like in the, you don't really, if you're going to want the game to grow, you don't want people or even your best players to just be jumping around teams only to eventually go back to that initial team.
Or just a different team in general, and just that doesn't even look like the original piece either.
Exactly, and it's just like I think you want your teams, or at least the teams that are going for that national title, you want them to have some sort of identity. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think this new rule is trying to kind of bring about. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to figure out exactly where or what this will lead to. But I definitely think it's a step in the right direction, in as much as, like you said, I think the teams that go there should have an identity, and realistically, I think they would want to have a fan base, at least, that can be consistent throughout the year, not just, hey, I'm watching this team in the national title, but they're they're not the same guys
like
that play all year round. Like, exactly.
When I watch Maw, I watch this team, but I go to the UFs, I go watch this team, and when I go watch Yard, I go watch this team, kind of thing. Not to say that you can't follow different teams. Team. But I think it's a lot more fun when you see a team that plays from April all the way to October. I think
exactly
as we've
right.
seen
That's
in other
my
sports,
thought. Yep.
It's definitely a bit more, at least from an entertainment standpoint, it's more fun to watch. Personally.
Exactly.
But I think also when in the point here, it says there's also going to be sanctioned events that people have to go through. That, I think, is going to be some interesting points of contention. Because last year, when they introduced the whole sanctioned event last year for 2021, they picked some events that tried to get in there with some like the MLW tournaments. Maw was on there for one. I think a Cedar Park, Texas tournament was on there as well, amongst some others. And some of the events were good. Some events to the masses of the Wiffle community weren't necessarily as loved being on the list. And those teams got automatic buys into the later parts of the tournament and gaining very much an advantage to winning the championship. Now, was it entirely deserved? Was it maybe necessarily the most warranted format to go through? That's a whole nother discussion for another time, because there are hours of podcasts out there in the community that already go into the goods, the bad, and the uglies of that. So I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole, because I probably already dug in the hole with what I've said already. But I think when you also look at sanctioned events that are going to be through this, I think there'll definitely be a looks from the UF's committee, knowing the feedback they had from this past tournament, to pick events that are going to be definitely, I think, more up to the challenge of being UF standard, and something that's going to warrant being at X position in the national championship tournament. I mean, a lot of that comes down to format too, when you complete the end game of it, but I could totally still see like Maw, ECW, both the events on there. Maybe you still see I said ECW twice. An MLW tournament get on there as well, potentially, even though it's a different format from it, to also get like representation from the Midwest region. Maybe you see also, I would think you probably will see NWA tournament again, considering it's the other big national going on throughout the year. Especially you can draw from it now, considering it's also further away from the NCT. Probably see Cedar Park again, I would think, and I guess from there it's going to be interesting to maybe draw stuff on the West Coast or in the Southeast to break these tournaments now. And I guess with the rule change having to play this event, they're going to also, wherever the tournaments they're going to pick, they're going to grow, because if you want to be there in October, you got to play these events. There's only one way to go to point B, and that's A to B. It's a straight line. There's no jaggeds. There's no curved lines. It's got to do what you got to do if you want to be at the serious main ball, the Super Bowl of Wiffle Ball, now. So I think when we speak for ourselves, it's going to be interesting to see what events eventually are the final rostered events coming out. But I guess now with the sanctioned events, what are the thoughts on it too? Are you feeling the same way about growing the game through this?
Yeah, I think the thing that scares me more than anything about this, though, is the fact that Obviously, they have the potential for each sanctioned event to have, like they say in the fine print, varying styles. Like, you don't know 100% if you're going to get the same talent or the same, like, there could be a different, yeah, exactly. There could be a different, one singular different rule that's the difference between winning and losing at one tournament versus the other tournament.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be much of an issue because everyone, I think, is already exposed now that wants to probably play this tournament, knows of the tournament, and has played the style at least a little bit.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's just, I don't know. There's obviously just still potential for that. Yeah. That's what scares me a little, but I don't think it's enough to really cause anything on the big...
Yeah.
I don't think it's enough to cause anything that's so widespread.
Yeah,
I guess it's a better way of saying it.
I gotcha.
But
I was gonna say though, rolling off of that, even with these tournaments, I mean, I guess we could maybe throw a prediction out here. How do you think they're gonna handle it with these sanctioned events? Do you go again what they did last year with tournament winners getting some type of advantage in the tournament? Do you just say, hey, maybe we take these teams that face X we take X teams out of this tournament and X teams out of this tournament. Do we weight bids in a way from ways, or do we? Or I probably think they're going to take tournament winners to keep it simple. But
yeah,
if I was with the UF committee right now, I would totally consider other things to possibly shake things up and maybe give more weight to other regions.
Yeah, I think tournament winners, but then at the same time, I would have those tournament winners play in a sort of round robin the day before the main tournament.
Well, that's what happened kind of last year, and that was, I of course didn't want to get down this rabbit hole, but I'll get down a teeny bit. Last year's tournament, they had every team that didn't get an automatic bid from the sanctioned tournaments had to play in an opening round where they enter this, I think it was double elimination. Yeah, double elimination. 6 or 8 teams in each pool, or 5 pools each. You won all 3 games. You went through to Sunday to the knockout rounds automatically. If you won 2 games or won 1 game, I think some one-win teams also got it too. You had to go to a second pool play round, which had all the teams that already had got bids. But here's the problem: the teams that got the bids basically got their fresh start against teams that played the whole day Saturday, and the teams that were playing starting at Saturday that were open had to play Saturday night on top of it to get to Sunday.
My point is
that enough of an advantage? I mean, I think there's definitely an argument to say that no. I think that's a bit much. So, it's not going to be an easy answer whenever UFS gets it.
That's the point I'm trying to get at. Is they wouldn't have that fresh start. The tournament winners wouldn't have that fresh start. What they would have is they like I said, they would have that round robin to kind of determine who truly is the number one of the number ones, and then have them get that bye during the knockout stage, and then come or not during the knockout stage. What was Saturday? Sorry.
Saturday was the pool play round. Sunday is the single elimination tournament style.
Yes.
The bracket
style.
So
okay, I'll kind of re-say that in a better way.
Yeah, actually, as you say that though, I was gonna say it's kind of almost what they already do with the Golden Stick Yard Open, where the top point getters from the year that play in the events, they play in a Super 16 bracket where the top 16 teams play a single elim to try to get seeds away to Sunday. They try to skip
that's exactly the point.
But here's the problem in a tournament like UWIPS with people throwing fast pitch compared to medium. Is that going to be a disadvantage though? Because you're going to play the games, and now you're worn out having to play the teams that have already played. But you could be a tournament winner. You could have worked your butt off the entire year, and then you're completely gassed before you get to Saturday night. And then if you get to Sunday, who knows? Not every team's going to be Superman going to have perfect flying colors with the rotations.
I don't think you're going to. I think it would be relatively even. You're going to have a full night's rest.
But still, that means you could have teams playing 3 days in a row. Logistically, that could be an issue, and I think just pure health-wise, that could be a serious concern. Unless you're going to say we have.
That's why I think
pitching limits. like inning limits.
Yeah. You had, I think that obviously the top teams that come out of that initial round robin to decide who's truly the number ones of the number ones. I think you kind of, you would have to give them that bye until Sunday, and that gives them. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if the Wiffle Masters want to hear you say that, because that might be worse than the format that's already out there.
I don't know, but I mean, if you're good and you're truly a number one, you should get that advantage.
But here's the problem with that though. Does the say a 14 under team from an MLW or 16 like the MLW Wiffle Lament tournament? Does that tournament deserve to have a top bye alongside the likes of the big teams like the Juggernauts, the Whippets, C4, Whiff Inc., Ridley Park, Lemonheads, all those teams? Do they deserve to be on the same level as them? Say it's like a first-time team.
You're saying that do they deserve to be in the initial round robin?
I'm questioning because I don't see a world where that's even possible. Because the quality of teams that get to the end of nationals in that format are much different than the teams that win some of these smaller tournaments. If you win a tournament and
no, they aren't all created equal, and that's the whole point behind the round robin. It was kind of to decide, hey, this team that won this small little tournament, we don't really know how good they are, so we're gonna put them up against, realistically, the big guns who won the big tournaments. And, I mean, more often than not, they are going to lose. But you never know.
Unless they're basically the same year as Wiffle Ball. You never know.
You never know.
October is crazy like that.
But I think that's what it really comes down to, is you don't want to win a tournament and then be immediately put in the mix. I don't think that's kind of deserved, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
all I gotta say is,
I know people would not have equal opinions as mine, naturally, but
trust me. I think we're not even on the inside of the whole community, and even the little bits I get from the inside of people who put stuff on like Twitter or even talk on their own like streams and podcasts. It's a wild world in that committee. I mean, listen, the pressure they're going to be under after some of the things that came out after last year's tournament. Gotta be spicy. Whatever decision they're gonna make, I hope it's the right one. And I think regardless of whatever you or I or whoever in Timbuktu thinks about what should happen, it's just gotta be something hopefully that just promotes the game and promotes good competition and rewards teams in a way that's not going to completely jeopardize everyone else from winning a tournament. It's like you don't want March Madness, but you want some madness at the same time too. It is the NCT. It's the best of the best. Have at it. Manja. Play whiffs. I think that's at least what I say. Make it even. I'm just a commissioner in a small league, so heck, what do I know? Honestly, I'm just throwing my mind out there, and probably I'll be getting mad tweets if someone reads this, or listens, because it's a podcast. God damn it, Benny. But
come on, man.
Damn, I'm slacking after all this arguing of going on, getting heated. But that's mostly it. And then the other thing, it's probably the most anticlimactic third final thing that you've ever listened to in your life, is that as with the
absolutely incredible rule change right here.
But just reading off it from their official statement is saying that the final four teams from the previous NCT, the teams that make the national semifinals, will automatically be entered into the current year tournament for 2022, so long as they maintain a pre-registration status with their current team. And that goes back with the previous rule that they have to play as long as they have three. Oh, well, kind of. It says there, I may as well read it for off it, that these teams can maintain their pre-registration status as long as three players from their 2021 National Championship Tournament roster are on their 2022 roster. So they can basically skip the sanctioned events because they already made it. But, I mean, if you get to the last four out of 40 teams throwing, chucking, going crazy for 2 days, I think that's the exception I think I can live with. I think that's a little bit fair. But that's the lowdown on UWIFs. It's a big ton. We haven't even got the official dates yet. We don't even know who's even going to be playing, what the sanctioned vets are going to do. It's chaos. It's crazy. It's Wiffle Ball. It's Liam flying. It's absolutely fantastic stuff here, folks. Riveting. And who knows? Maybe you see CTWL here in 2022 as well to be in the party. But don't worry. You won't have to worry about us. We'll probably be out on Saturday. Maybe we'll make it a Saturday night if we're lucky. But
yeah,
that's just a theory on that one. But US aside, though, as we're working on this, I somehow have the patience and the vocal capacity to switch gears into our neck of the woods, CTWL-wise, because Finally, thank the heavens, we have some free agency off-season news on our hands. Admittedly, it's by one team and it's mine, but it is news nonetheless. Just some of the news, just recapping the news that's gone on in the last couple of weeks. First of which was the Algarville Defenders, my own team, hired Casey LaRusso, who was a rookie last year in 2020. Because he played so few games, he'll be retaining his rookie status for the upcoming 2022 season. But this year, he'll be serving alongside me as the assistant manager of the team. So I'll be having a nice switch of change to possibly get some new guards in there and prepare the team for a long-term future beyond my locally with the existence in the CWL, which still has no rings. But who knows? I was talking to Casey in the off season, and he had a bunch of interest to be in the league. I'm like, given where he was geographically, I'm like, hey, let's get you in here. Let's see if you can do to help grow the team and do better than 6-14 this past year. So we're gonna dust the Cubs up on that, and I'm glad to have him with us. And who knows? Probably, maybe we'll finish outside of last this year. I'm hoping. Otherwise, it'll be another painful 9-month off season. But great to have him on the team there. I know you probably aren't that mad about it, considering you were never going to get him. But, finders keepers, losers weepers. But you did have some news, though, that did come out right after that, though.
I did.
Because there was a trade that went down between the two founding teams, between the Defenders and the two-time champ Shoreline Breakers, as the Breakers acquired Alex Inglis from Algarville in exchange for 2-year player Patrick Grubberg, as well as a 2022 compensatory round selection in our first-year player draft. Connor, I've been talking a lot here. I guess you want to take the reins here on what you've been feeling about this selection here and adding this player who's admittedly been a little bit quiet the last couple of years, but hopefully can add a nice piece to you and Liam in your hopes of a potential three-peat. Talk about it.
Exactly. Alex. Obviously, I've known him for probably 5-6 years now, so naturally we've already grown close. So he has that baseball background that Patrick didn't really have. Personally, I think the whole basis for the trade was to make things a whole lot easier for both sides. Because, as we know, Pat is from North Haven and obviously is way closer to you than I am, obviously. I think it made it a whole lot easier for him, because I remember him texting me just before that trade went official. He was like, yeah, I think it's probably better for me to get more opportunity to play, even if it's with a team like Ben's, who isn't as good.
At least now. Fast forward.
Never. Yeah, I think having Alex closer to his home, albeit not crazy close, but still, it's closer. It definitely makes it so that it's easier for Pat and Alex to play more games than they obviously did last season, which was, I don't even know, maybe 2 or 3 tops.
Yeah.
For
Alex,
their
I think
teams.
the official stats, I think Alex played 4, and I think Pat, you saw 2 or 3 out of them.
Exactly. And
so, not a whole lot in the ways of
I think the whole
contribution.
thing comes down to seeing more of these guys, giving them more potential experience.
But I think as you're going off that, though, I guess looking at Alex, he definitely has the ability to play both sides, at least 2 of the 3 sides of the ball, to a solid level. He has been proven to be able to hit at a decent clip. I guess maybe not at the same pace as Pat had in his 2020 Rookie of the Year campaign, but given the baseball background, it's something that he's slowly starting to pick up from. I mean, combined with that and seeing Zach Sif 4 times, I mean, that does a number into teaching you how this sport works. But he has the ability to also be good in the field, as he was during his high school baseballing days. So you have a person that can do that, and it ultimately helps you in the outfield too, because now you're not the only one diving for fly balls. Now you have someone who can maybe man out there in center and go make a play, and who knows? Now you could take the pressure off Liam, and defensively that makes your life a lot easier.
That was my thought. That was my thought process. It was Alex is a guy who I get that you're saying that Alex didn't have as good hitting statistics as Pat did in his Rookie of the Year campaign, but at the same time, Alex was facing some of the top tier pitching of the league.
To be fair, it was the East Region Rookie of the Year finalist, so
Exactly.
To be fair, I did put him in a rather weird predicament, but
Exactly.
I mean, at least he gave a couple of swings, and then I said, you know what, get a hit, I'll buy you donuts at Whitney Donuts. So, and I get no response on that one.
Yeah, no, that was bad.
Hey, Whitney Donut, if you're listening to this, I wouldn't mind a nice little sponsor, get a little shout out.
Of course, everyone loves Whitney Donut.
Of course, we support this podcast. Of course, we're not sponsored, but hey, if you're down in Augerville catching the game,
a theory. No, I'm kidding.
It isn't just a theory. Just go have a Whitney Donut. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not asking. I'm not requesting. I am demanding Whitney Donuts. But
what about Beach Donut?
I can't relate. I'm a Hampton North Haven person, so I can't relate.
Come on.
Listen, probably all the Bagelicious people are probably getting mad at me as I say that too. So
yeah,
I gotta watch my McDonald's.
Goated.
True. Anyways, you can't hit a wiffle ball with a bagel, but you can hit it with a bat.
God, what
My genius, it truly is frightening, folks.
Yeah, that was.
This is what happens when you start a wiffle ball conversation that comes to food because you're so gosh damn hungry.
Yep, that's how.
That's why the perfect reason why I need a food sponsor, and I don't have a reading because we have no sponsors. Crybeep stop. But back to the trade though. I think it's definitely a good trade that can work out for you guys defensively. And listen, if you get hitting production out of you guys, that helps you too. And I think when you go the opposite way for us, for the defenders, the reason why we took him was, or Pat, as we're talking about him, the reason why we took him was for his offensive capabilities. And Pat has been noted not to have the greatest arm, if not much of one. But that doesn't really matter when you can be able to put the ball in play and score runs, which, as a team last year, even though we faced Madison 8 times, gave them 8 of their 17 wins, you still got to be able to put runs on the board and still got to be able to give efforts to go win games.
Exactly.
So when you go put pressure on the other team, that helps your pitchers, that helps everybody, helps me not throw my arm out, and gives yourself a chance to win. So we're hoping if Pat can rekindle a bit more of his consistency from 2020, both in showing up and offensively, it could give us a nice little push, because I think getting Casey his first full-time year this year, that he's probably going to go through an adjustment period of his own, and we need someone who's going to be both just a mental presence for him and be able to just light the way and give us a spark behind me. Because, 160 also isn't going to cut it too as a PO, so hopefully hopefully it's going to help. Draft pick, also maybe getting a draft pick that could help out too would also help. But I mean, to be fair, we do have I'll be one to admit we have plenty of issues on the team going with a lot of weaknesses. But I think getting Pat to at least score runs can at least maybe take away some of that for the moment, and from there, at least maybe try to build some more prospects and build the team from the ground up, because it won't be an easy process building this team back up, but we definitely got to make it back in order to knock the Breakers off a potential 3-peat. So
I don't think that'll happen, but we'll see.
We keep flirting with it. Well, hey, I guess we'll see you at the World Series in August. You never know, folks. You never know. But in other news, with the addition of one meant the leaving of another, Ryan Moot, longtime 2-year player, was released by the Defenders back in February, announcing basically the pause of his 2-year stint with the team. He was also part of the 2020 Pro League World Series team alongside myself, and now currently is a unrestricted free agent. Even though we do only have 3 teams in the league right now, it's been surprising knowing that, given his experience, no one's really had the idea to look at Moot and possibly add him as a nice little reserve or a backdoor role on some of the teams, as he has been with the Defenders. I personally think that playing with him, that he can certainly prove a role, but certainly a recency bias having played with him the last couple of years. I think, Connor, what's been the stitch with him? Why do you think anyone hasn't been going after him in the last couple of weeks?
I don't know. Man, you're asking a tough question to one of the managers who hasn't picked him up. But, man, I think one of the...
Maybe?
I think one of the reasons why we haven't really thought about picking up Moot is, I mean, what's there to realistically gain? Because I think we have 3 true ball players, we being the Breakers, we have 3 true ball players already on our team. I don't know what Moot would be for us, because I don't know, 1, whether or not he'll show up to many games, 2, whether or not he'll really produce in the way that that he has in the past in his 2020 season, where he was producing a heck of a lot. But
Man was a true slayer back in those days.
He was.
But hey, he's one of the two people, along with you and I believe Ryan, are the only two people to officially record a hit off Sif last year. So I think that's a Guinness Book of World Records worthy moment, if I do say so myself. Certainly the accomplishment on that one. But
yeah, getting a hit off Sif was one of the greatest moments of my entire life. So anyway. Moving on.
Listen, I came close. I didn't get the ball stuck in the grass of Bassett. I would have been the third person, but,
And we won't talk about the other thing that happened.
There are plenty of things that have happened. You could go down many roads with that. But we are focusing on Moot, though. The big mystery of will Moot find a home before the start of the season in May? Because that's certainly a question that remains to be answered. And there's, and I guess as time rolls on here, there's less and less time to know if he's going to be finding a team or he'll be watching the Defenders on YouTube. Who knows? What do you think about it? I know, unfortunately, I released him, so obviously my interest is past its expiration date. But I guess for other teams, do you think there's possibly someone that, let's say, within our region could possibly pick him up?
It's weird because you are asking another manager this question.
I guess you want to ask your persona of analyst Conor, there's club manager Conor. I guess.
Asking
him. What does he think?
I think there's potential he gets signed somewhere. Do I think he gets signed before the season starts? I personally don't think so. I think he gets signed midway through. I think there's going to be someone who isn't producing offensively. This is a big prediction, but I think there's going to be someone that
big prediction, folks. Write it down, paper on the pen. Let's see what happens.
There's going to be someone that isn't producing as offensively as the manager would have hoped, and I think Moot's going to still be an option that's still going to be on the table, and he's going to get that opportunity. And I don't know if he will run away with it, but he'll definitely be very serviceable for that team. Mm-hmm. So,
who knows? It's going to be an interesting start to the season as the Connecticut Wiffle Ball League is now less than 2 months from our proposed opening day date, which we haven't announced it to the public yet, but from our current estimations, we are looking for a date sometime at the middle of May. I think it's around the 20th, 21st is our preemptive date. Still, again, not official, but as we get closer and closer, the free agency might pick up. There might be some moves still come out. We still have some teams to eventually announce once the availability comes. And then it's going to be on to game day time where I get to heckle not Conor on the podcast, but also in the real game a couple of times. So it's going to be an interesting point once we get to all of that, which is soon to come. And also soon to come is more coming here on the Scuffin It Up podcast. We're going to take a quick little break, and we will be right back. Welcome back, Wiffling fans, to the Scuffin It Up podcast. We're wrapping things up here with Conor. I'm Ben, as always. And as we wrap things up, we've sort of covered a lot of things in the Wiffling world today, and going forward, I think it's fair to say that the Wiffling world is going to get more exciting as we get closer and closer to opening day. I know that even as we record this podcast, tomorrow, when we record this on the 25th of March, tomorrow is the MAW Spring Training and Media Day Tournament, where they'll be fielding 4 teams at an indoor baseball facility to host scrimmage games and get media coverage for the upcoming MAW season. So even in our area, in our general New England region, we'll be seeing the fast pitch game getting back in action. We also, I guess, in news that, getting ready for Wiffle Ball if you're getting excited, MLW also just posted opening day matchup where for the second time in the last couple of years, we finally get a World Series rematch for the first time since 2018, where the Downtown Diamondbacks and Western Wildcats will be playing on May the 1st, with a video coming out on May the 6th. So what felt like a long time ago, is now really not that far away, folks. Or maybe a good 30, 45 days away. And Wiffle Ball will be here. Heck, even CTWL will be here in now less than 2 months. So, pack your bags. Preseason's getting hot, and this show is only going to get hotter with coverage of leagues around the country and guests, you never thought that Wiffle noobs could dare to ever get their hands on. Not even us two clowns. But that's going to do it for us today on this episode. As always, if you want to keep up to date with everything going on with the Scuffin It Up podcast, you can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Scuffin It Up. That is at SCUFFINITUP. And again, on Instagram and on Twitter. Before we go, any thoughts here, Connor, to get the folks ready for the plans coming ahead?
No.
A man of true words, Connor DaCosta. There are things you can say when you are a two-time Pro League champion. But even with the long break, to make things up for time, we usually do go by bi-weekly in the off-season, but as we're getting closer, and the fact that we kind of omitted, say, a couple of episodes in the middle of March, we will be going back-to-back episodes. So we got an episode this week, and you will get another episode the following week when this comes out. So be on the lookout for that, of course. And you, of course, can listen anywhere you're listening right now. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and basically anywhere you can put on a screen and get access to the internet. But again, that's going to do it for us. For Connor in his caddy shack, from me in a college dorm, it's always a pleasure. And until the next time, see ya!
Yeah.